Hello and welcome back to the latest edition of the Warp Cave episode, and I hope you've all enjoyed the last series of episodes of PAX South. And now that it's done and out of the way, we are going to look towards the future. And later on down the road, I am going to be doing a couple of special episodes devoted to Game of Thrones, so be on the lookout for that. And I will also be doing after-show reviews of each of the episodes of Game of Thrones. So be sure to tune in for that one. I know it's been a while since my last edition, and thank you for being patient. And again, I am grateful that you have all tuned in. And today we are going to talk a little bit about Leonard Nimoy's passing and talk about some favorite moments of his from the Star Trek days, as well as we are going to do the meat of the episode on Star Wars Rebels. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And I also would like to welcome a guest co-host, Mark. Welcome back, Mark.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. And
today, I hope we're going to have fun today. So let's talk about Leonard Nimoy's passing. You've touched a little bit about it in your episode of your Rebel Radio podcast. So I like to share my thoughts on it. When I found out that Leonard Nimoy passed away, I was pretty sad. And it reminded me about how well of an actor he was. And he's such a commanding voice. You know, I would kill for a voice like that. But alas, you know, genes are what they are. But my favorite thing about Leonard Nimoy, especially that reminded me of his character Spock, was the reboot from the J.J. Abrams movies when he first made his glorified cameo in it. And it reminded me of how grounded that character is, how ingrained it is within, you know, Leonard Nimoy's legacy for Star Trek. So that's one of my favorite moments. And another favorite moment of mine for Leonard Nimoy in the movie settings is Star Trek 6, where Captain Kirk was sentenced to Rurapenthe, and it was up to Spock to figure out the mystery of how the assassins killed Chancellor Gorkin. And it was very well written and very exemplary of how Spock was showed in that series. Yeah, it's particularly in that movie. It's one of my favorite Spock moments. I'll let you lead it too. I'm just sharing a couple of my favorite Spock moments. As far as the Star Trek original series, City on the Edge of Forever, where Spock, McCoy, and Kirk goes back in 1930s America to, you know, follow a crazy McCoy. And he had a bunch of really good one-liners in there where he had to try to figure out how to create 23rd century technology with 20th century stuff. And he was talking about it's like rubbing sticks together to create something miraculous. But, of course, he directed Star Trek 3 and 4 and conceived of the story of Star Trek 6. But yeah, very commanding presence, and he also appeared as William Bell from Fringe. I never watched Fringe, but I heard some of the few appearances that he's done. He's done a pretty good job of it too. So, how about you?
I mean, you touched on some things. Spock was always my favorite character, and I don't know why. I think maybe it was the little things, like where he was supposed to be so serious, but then he would drop humor and he would do that eyebrow thing he would do, like it was supposed to be a joke. And he was the one constant. I think you touched on it by him appearing in the J.J. Abrams films, is that he was the one constant throughout it all. He appeared in Next Generation, one of my favorite episodes of Unification, and he was always there from the 1960s when it started till recently, and I think that's why he appealed to everyone. And I wasn't the biggest Trek fan growing up. My dad was a big fan. I was more the Star Wars guy. But I've over the years, I would see the films with him, and I've gained an appreciation for what Star Trek means to the world and to people. And I like it more now than I did before. Haven't seen every episode of the original series. I've tried. Some of them are really hard to watch, and because they're just they're dated. But when I first heard he was passed, this was the first celebrity I think that I ever really felt it. And as cheesy as that sounds, I mean, maybe a little bit with Paul Walker last year because he was young like us, But Leonard Nimoy was really like, wow, that's Spock. He's gone, and we won't have him anymore. And I heard rumors that him and Shatner may both appear in Star Trek 3, and now they may have to change that, obviously, and that's kind of a bummer. And I just kind of sat back silently for a minute and thought about it and reflected on it, and we talked about it on our show and on my website, and he'll be missed, and it's like a part of the Star Trek universe that really took a hit, and it's really sad to think that it's only George Takei, William Shatner, and Nichelle Nichols are left.
Right.
And it's but times change, and people forget, like you said. It's funny you mentioned that commanding voice. I mean, he was Galvatron in Transformers the animated film.
Yeah. He
was Sentinel Prime in the Dark of the Moon Transformers. Whether you like Bay or not, his voice was still awesome in that film. And he was a humanitarian too. A lot of people don't know how much work he did.
Yeah.
There's been unfortunate things come out in the media lately about whether he was a Christian or not. Who cares? The guy did a lot for the world, and he made the world a better place. And now he's gone, and he'll be missed.
Yep. Yeah, and kind of a side note, I've also I remember back 20 years ago where I actually caught him in a non-Star Trek role. It was a black and white movie, and he played a washed-out Grand Prix racer. And I knew it was Leonard Nimoy because even without the pointed ears and without the crop bowl cut that he was sporting, I could still recognize him. But I forgot what the movie was about.
He took a lot of little character roles like that here and there, would pop up in things.
Yeah, he starred in it.
Yeah.
So but other than that, but yeah, that's my tribute to Leonard Nimoy, and thank you for all the memories, and live long and prosper, as he would like to say, and I would like to share that with y'all as well. So, on to the meat of this episode. We're going to talk about Star Wars Rebels, and I am fresh to the series, to the television universe of Star Wars, and it is currently being broadcast on Disney XD, and the first season just concluded. And I just want to warn you all that this review will contain spoilers, and I will give you a brief non-spoiler review on it. It is a very fun show, very sense of adventure that I really dig. The characters are very nuanced, and even though the first season didn't really focus on their backstory as much, it did focus on Ezra's backstory. But the show basically revolves around 4 rebels on the planet Lothal, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah, Lothal. And they're basically a 4-man rebel team that disrupts all of the operations on the said planet. And through it all, we see cameos from the original trilogy, of characters from the original trilogy. The action is well choreographed. The animation is just perfect for what the show is about. If you're familiar with the Clone Wars series, then that's what it is. But thankfully, they've already have all the CG animation down to a T, almost to a pedigree. So I highly recommend the series, and if you have not watched it, I recommend it. And this is coming from someone who's never watched the Clone Wars. So
you should.
Yeah. Actually, I picked up a couple of spot episodes here and there on some of the characters I was curious about. So, anyways, that's my non-spoiler review. So, we are going to move on to spoilers. I have Mark here because he's watched all of the Clone Wars. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All the Clone Wars series. And since he has a much more well-rounded perspective on the Star Wars Rebels, why don't you share with us? Let's start with your thoughts on the Clone Wars leading into Rebels, and what were you expecting?
Well, I thought with the Star Wars Clone Wars, it's definitely the best thing to come out of the prequel era, and I'm not a prequel hater like a lot of people. I take the prequels for what they are. They're not perfect, but they're still Star Wars. But the Clone Wars was what we wanted the prequels to be. It was adventure and excitement, lightsaber fights, speeders. It was seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan be Jedis like they should be, and also generals in the wars, and Yoda doing his thing, and it had a lot of cameos too from Chewbacca, and then it looked into the underworld with the bounty hunters at the time and things like that, and we got to see more of the young Boba Fett throughout the Clone Wars, and it was really excellently well done, and the animation was superb. The only thing I thought with the Clone Wars was being on Cartoon Network, they did 22 episode seasons. So sometimes the seasons get a little long. And it looks like Disney's going a route of 14 or 15 episodes. And I think that's a little better. I'm kind of becoming a fan of short season shows like The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad, where you can watch 12 or 13 episodes and not have to follow it for 6 months. It's a little easier to watch. But Clone Wars was excellent. And when I heard that Disney bought Star Wars, everything, and that they were going to do this Rebels, I thought, man, I hope it's not that kind of Disney, like the Marvel stuff.
Disneyfied or something like that.
The Marvel cartoons are fun, but they're very Disneyfied.
Yeah, very family-ish in a way.
But then I heard Dave Filoni, who produced Clone Wars, was coming over to Disney with it. And when I heard that was happening, I'm like, oh, that's great news.
Yeah.
And when I first watched Star Wars Rebels, from the first 5 minutes, I was hooked.
Right.
The music, the sound effects and stuff from the original trilogy, right away you knew that this was different than Clone Wars, and it was firmly set in the original trilogy era. Even if it is, have they really says about 15 years before A New Hope? It's kind of right halfway between episode 3 and 4. Yeah. And, because Darth Vader is around, and he's made a few cameos, and, and right away I thought this was the perfect way to do it. To put it in that original trilogy era, but it still kind of ties to the prequels. It's not, the universe isn't completely torn up yet. There's still some cleanliness to it, and the TIE fighters and everything, and the stormtroopers, and one thing I read that I found interesting was they promised that there would be a wow moment in every episode, and they've actually lived up to that. Yeah. And every episode has a moment where, as a fan, I found myself going, "Wow, that was really cool." Yeah. And I didn't even get that with Clone Wars. Yeah. And I've been preaching the choir of Star Wars Rebels since it debuted in October to friends and people and saying, man, watch this show. It's not just for kids. It is for Star Wars fans.
You didn't for me, I know we talked about it, but you didn't really preach it that much to me. I was intrigued by the idea already. And the fact of going back to Clone Wars and watching all those episodes, it was a little daunting to me at first. So I was like, maybe I'll wait for Rebels to go through its run, and then I'll binge watch it, which I did. and so kind of funny backstory, because you've caught up a little bit of it. I was looking at certain websites to see if I could watch it for free, and then I was like, man, I want it at the best quality possible. And I tried to go down that route. I was like, man, screw it. It's just quicker just to buy the whole season and just go for it. And I crossed my fingers. I bought it, purchased it through Amazon Video, and I watched it, and I was hooked on the first. I gave it like a 3-episode trial, and that's what I usually 3 to 4 episodes in. And man, I was hooked by by the end of the first episode. And I started watching it like at 10 o'clock in the evening on a Thursday night. And I was like, okay, I'll just watch 2 episodes and I'll just go to sleep. And I ended up going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. Finished like 8 episodes of it on the first night. It's like, oh man, this is pretty good. So, and it didn't feel like, my biggest thing that I was afraid of when going into the show was, it was on Disney XD. And I was like, okay, so there's a young kid in here, and I hope he doesn't go in each episode saying, I'm smarter than you, we're going to do it this way, showing the adult up, that which is typical of Disney series. Like the adults don't want to do this, but the kid is proven right anyways. Yeah. That's BS. I'm glad it's more well-rounded, where the adults know what they're doing and the kids following suit.
Well, it's funny because one thing I felt, it's funny you mentioned, because everyone was worried that when Disney took over Star Wars, they were going to Disneyfy it, but being under Disney is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think this has showed me that Lucasfilm and Lucas Animation truly has a hold on Rebels, and it gives me hope for the films too, that it's still under Lucasfilm. It's not Disney telling them what to do.
Yeah, exactly. And do you have any favorite moments that stick out to you?
I like the Lando episode. And it's funny because sometimes there were cameos in Clone Wars, and they kind of felt forced. Like, let's get this here because we need some popular characters. With Rebels, it doesn't feel forced because it is in that era. It fits, and I really enjoyed the Lando episode. Kind of getting to see Lando be that swindler that we didn't really we got to see a touch of in the films, but we didn't really get to see Lando be Lando. Yeah. And I've heard there will be more of him. I mean, I've heard that I think we'll see a lot of characters from the films.
Yeah, it was nice seeing Billy D. Williams reprised that role.
Yeah.
That's his voice.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't sound like it's aged either.
No,
you know?
And that's really cool. And seeing the droids always is fun. And Bail Organa. And
yeah, what was that little droid's name? That's part of their crew. Chopper.
Yeah.
Man, that little droid. Excuse the word. He's a little asshole. I've never seen a droid that's such a little, ornery little punk droid. It's a little troll too, you know. And I'm like, geez, if that was the embodiment of the internet, it's helpful, and yet a little bit of a nuisance. Then that's Chopper.
My other favorite episode was, and this is where we start hitting spoilers, is the Kanan reveal episode, where he reveals that he is a Jedi. Even though going into the show, we all knew it because Disney wasn't quite in their marketing, let you know there's a Jedi in the show. But that moment where he says, well, they're fixing to find out, and he busts out the lightsaber, that was just like, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was like right there in 1977 again.
I think it was by the third episode that Ezra mentioned, well, will I start my training now?
Yeah.
You know, so they eased people into it. And
right. But the big reveal of the lightsaber was really cool.
Yeah, you got any favorite characters out of that crew?
I actually like Ezra. It's funny. I usually don't like kid characters, but I like him and his kind of a mix of a Han and Luke. You know? And I like Kanan. Yeah, I do like Kanan, and I also like Hera and Sabine. It's interesting. She grows on you.
Yeah, interesting concept. I love her hair for some reason. Same color hair as Ezra, but with the highlights. But Hera she is definitely the foundation of the team, and I kind of have this hint or subtle hints the way that Kanan and Hera have eye contact with each other. There's definitely a history between them, and at the very last episode where they hugged, there's definitely probably seeds of maybe more than just a friendship, hopefully. And I do want to see that because I'm a romantic at heart for some reason.
And it's great that we got the cameos from Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin, but the Inquisitor, he might be the coolest villain we've had since Darth Maul.
Do you think he's dead?
I don't know. He's not dead.
Yeah.
I think, it's hard to make a really cool kind of scary villain because you want to keep it kid friendly. But Inquisitor, really, you think he means business. I mean, I truly think he would have killed Ezra if Kanan did not come to rescue him.
Right.
And that's what I like about him. He's a truly evil villain.
Yeah. When he fell into the engine core of the Star Destroyer, that definitely, it wasn't a definite death because you didn't see his body vaporize or anything like that. So we'll see what happens. I am really looking forward. One of my favorite moments, actually, it's kind of subtle that from the series, is definitely the Billy D. Williams things. But hold on. Yeah, well, as I was kind of saying a little bit earlier, I do agree with you on those points. Where one of my favorite moments in the series, and it's a little subtle, it's the appearance of the Star Destroyer and the TIE fighters. It's the art direction. It's deeply connected to the original series, which we've all come and love. And it's almost like I miss seeing things from the original series.
Yeah.
So the Star Destroyer appearance was, tops of my book. Seeing Lando flirt with the girls, that's always fun to watch. And the big reveal at the end, Ahsoka Tano made her appearance. I did watch the last 5 episodes of the Clone Wars,
which were some of the best.
Yeah, of her leaving the Jedi Order, and I've always liked the character. Didn't watch any other episodes besides that, But other than that, I think it was kind of cool, and that bit
to connect the series too.
Yeah, and the everyone's rubbing their palms together in anticipation to see what will happen when she finally meets Darth Vader.
Right.
So how about you? Any
Yeah, I and you said earlier that it captures that sense of adventure. And I think that's the first thing I got from it in the very first episode where they're going through the city and all that, and the speeders, and just that you didn't, like I said, I don't hate the prequels, but I never, in the 3 films, I never felt that. Maybe a little bit during the pod race, he had that sense of adventure, but you didn't get that feeling that you got when the speeder bikes were going through Endor, or the X-Wings were trying to blow up the Death Star at the end of Star Wars. And right away in Rebels, you get that.
Yeah.
You have that sense of adventure, and fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't take itself too serious.
Yeah.
Sometimes the prequels took themselves a little too seriously, and you're like, okay, this isn't very fun,
Yeah.
And I think that's what Rebels hit the nail right on the head, is to just have fun with it and put it make it Star Wars, and that's what it's done.
Yeah. My only gripes with the series again is that it was just only the first season, but I wanted to know more about the backstories.
Right.
And looking forward, when season 2 starts, is it going to be this year that they're going to do season 2?
Probably in October. Yeah, because they split this up. They had the first part aired in October, and it was like 6-7 episodes, and then took a break at Christmas, and it came back in January with these last 6 or 7.
Really?
However many it was.
Man,
so,
that sucks.
I bet they'll come back in October-ish or November again.
That's a long wait.
Yeah.
They could churn out 22 episodes like crazy in the Clone Wars.
And I'm wondering maybe if the second season will be longer. I wonder if Disney will do that, because their other cartoons are longer. So I'm wondering if maybe they did that for the first season.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I'm just going to freaking buy the season pass again for season 2 because I don't have XD, and I'm just not going to go through the trouble of doing the pirate stream or anything like that.
Right.
So what I'm looking forward to, looking ahead, definitely want to see where they're going after they left their home planet of Lothal. And I am looking forward to the confrontation between Darth Vader and Ahsoka.
Right.
And I am looking forward to what planets they're going to explore, what other cameos are going to pop in, and I want to know more about the characters. So,
yeah, I'd be interested to see what happened with Kanan, why he survived, and I'd love to see, as cliche as it sounds, because people get tired of Boba Fett, I'd love to see Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I thought was cool about Clone Wars, was it did show a lot of bounty hunter stuff, and I want to see more of that even in this.
Mm-hmm.
And
that bounty hunter episode's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. That was a Clone Wars episode with
Clone Wars
Asajj.
Some really cool bounty hunter episodes, and I'd like to see that in Rebels, is bring Boba Fett in, and maybe some of our original trilogy bounty hunters like Dengar and some of those.
Dengar.
And maybe Bosk. Bosk did have a cameo in the
Bosk
Clone
is
Wars,
awesome.
Yeah. And there's so much you can do with this show. I mean, I'd like to maybe see more Bail Organa and how he helped form the rebellion and things like that. We got a couple of cameos from him in this show, and there's so much you can do. I mean, I've heard things from that Disney can't touch a young Han yet because of all the rumors about them doing a Han prequel movie,
which is understandable. I think.
So things like that. But if it opens up the idea of seeing Lando or a young Princess Leia, why not? See what we can get with those things. Because they say this is put into canon. It's official canon. So we'll see what they do with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's been rumors of Rebels even tying in with episodes 7, 8, and 9 somehow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what. Nor we got older Ezra,
right?
50 years old. He's in the show somewhere or in the movies.
Yeah, and another thing I'm looking forward to is seeing the relationship developments between all the characters.
Yeah, because was it Zed? Is that the big guy, Zen?
Yeah.
And him and Ezra, he hated the kid at the beginning, and by the time we get to the end of the first season, he kind of respects the kid and realizes, hey, he does his own thing. He can help us out.
He's going to be a major player.
Yeah.
Zed, I forgot about Zed.
Yeah,
that's funny.
He's based on the concept art of Chewbacca that
right.
McQuarrie designed back in the 70s,
right.
and they kind of use that design to create this new character.
Yeah,
he's kind of like the Wookiee of the group, so to speak.
Yeah, right. And he speaks English at least.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the animal grunts and stuff like that, which I'd love Chewbacca too.
Well,
so
it's funny because I actually just watched Empire Strikes Back last night. We just put it on for to have something to watch, and it still cracks me up where Chewbacca just roars and Han's like, "Oh, you found him in a pile of trash." It's just like,
right.
But you accept it for what it is. You don't think about it. Just like you don't question why people don't know Clark Kent and Superman. It just,
right.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, as I said before in my non-spoiler part of the review, I highly recommend the show. If you have not seen it, catch it and watch it. And if you know a friend who has a stream or whatever of it, take it and spend a good day on it, and you'll be able to watch it all in one sitting. So I highly recommend it.
And if you haven't watched Clone Wars either, it's all on Netflix. Watch it. It's worth it. Don't dismiss these Star Wars things just for kids.
Yeah, and that's I'm coming from the perspective of not seeing Clone Wars
Right.
and not really having a clue about any of the backstories. So, were there any Clone Wars stuff that you picked up on that the show might have mentioned that
Nothing
only
yet
Clone
that I
Wars
picked up
fans?
directly. No,
Just
no.
Ahsoka Tano?
Yeah, just Ahsoka, and then because they haven't even said nothing with stormtroopers or clone troopers yet or anything.
Yeah.
Which I'm wondering about that because now they're starting to come out and say that no one ever says stormtroopers or clone troopers. They're kind of retconning that a little bit.
I was surprised that one little surprise that I mentioned is that remember the two junior officers that were in charge of chasing after the rebels?
Yeah.
They were executed. They hinted at their execution, so they didn't show it. But I was surprised that they, even mentioned that on Disney XD. So it was like, okay, that's good. That means the show is serious.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's why Inquisitor could be dead. It's highly unlikely because we didn't see it, but maybe they go in a different route and introducing a different villain for season 2.
Right. So.
But I'd be shocked. I have a feeling that he's probably coming back.
Again, I highly recommend it coming from a fresh perspective. And how about you, Mark?
Yeah, definitely watch it. It's been the funnest animated show I've seen in a while. I watch it with my son. He loves it. And, from a lifelong Star Wars fan, this is one of the best things they've done for Star Wars in a while. I mean, if you didn't like the prequels or you're not super excited about the new Disney films from Star Wars, watch this. Give it a chance. It's definitely worth your time. I mean, 30 minutes a day, once a week, why not?
Right.
It's really, really well done.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in on this episode. And in the next couple of episodes, we will be doing a retrospective reviews on seasons 1 through 4 of Game of Thrones. And I welcome you all to listen to that. Chime in if you want. Give us your thoughts on that. And after that series of episodes are done, we are going to do after episode reviews on the Game of Thrones season 5. So be sure to tune in for those. And again, thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Mark, for
thanks for having me. And don't forget, y'all can find all episodes of the Warp Cave at trustmeI'mAJedi.com now.
Yes, and I'm very happy to be part of the network.
Yep.
So again, thank you all for tuning in, and see you around the corner.